What if the feeling of weight you've trusted your entire life is not caused by gravity at all? What if nothing is actually pulling you down right now? This sounds absurd, almost offensive to common sense, because gravity feels undeniable. You feel it in your legs when you stand, in your stomach when you fall, in the quiet certainty that down is real. And yet, Einstein looked at this certainty and said, something here is deeply wrong. For centuries, we inherited a simple story. Gravity is a force. Objects attract each other across empty space. The Earth pulls you down. You resist. End of explanation. It's intuitive, comforting, and mostly works until you ask a dangerous question. How does the Earth pull you? Not metaphorically, physically. What reaches out from the planet crosses the void and grabs you. Newton himself was uneasy with this. A force acting instantly across nothing. No contact, no mechanism, just influence. He accepted it because the math worked, but he never claimed to understand what gravity was. Most people never noticed that discomfort. Our brains prefer results over explanations. Einstein didn't. He noticed something unsettling hiding in plain sight. When you fall freely, you feel no gravity at all. No weight. No pull. Astronauts orbiting Earth aren't floating because gravity disappears. Gravity is strong there. They float because they are falling constantly, perfectly. And in that state, gravity becomes undetectable. That single observation cracks reality open. If gravity vanishes when you fall, then why does it appear when you stand still? Why does rest feel heavier than motion? This reverses everything. Your intuition tells you. You don't feel gravity because Earth pulls you. You feel weight because something is stopping you from moving naturally. Right now, the floor is pushing up into you. Hard. That resistance is what your body interprets as gravity. Remove the floor, and suddenly the force disappears. That alone should make you uneasy. Forces don't usually vanish just because you move differently. Einstein followed this discomfort to a radical conclusion, one that destroys the idea of gravity as a force entirely. And if he's right, then what you call falling, standing, and even being still are all misinterpretations of something far stranger happening underneath. If that idea just made you pause, good, because it means your intuition is starting to crack in the right place. And here's what I want you to do. Before we go further, comment one sentence describing what gravity has always been in your head. Seriously, write it like you're explaining it to a child. Gravity is the Earth pulling me. Or gravity is a force that drags things down. Put it in the comments, because in a minute, you're going to watch that sentence fall apart. And make sure you're actually tracking what's happening here, not just letting the words wash over you. This video isn't about formulas, it's about catching your brain in the act of lying to you. The more you understand the shift Einstein made, the more disturbing the next part becomes. Because it doesn't stop at gravity. It spreads to time, space, and what now even means. So if you want the full picture, hit like to tell the algorithm this isn't just entertainment, it's a mental upgrade. And subscribe, because this channel is basically a guided demolition of everything you thought reality was. Also, turn on notifications if you don't want to miss the next paradox that rewires your sense of the universe. All right, now that you've pinned your old definition of gravity in the comments, let's do the uncomfortable part. The exact mistake Einstein corrected wasn't just Newton's idea of a force, it was the way we define motion itself. And once you see it, you'll realize you've been calling the wrong thing still your entire life. For over 300 years, physics carried a silent assumption that almost no one questioned. If an apple falls, something must be pulling it. If the moon stays in orbit, something must be tugging on it from afar. Newton gave us an equation that worked with terrifying precision, and because it worked, we stopped asking what it meant. That was the mistake. Not the math, but the story we told ourselves around it. Newtonian gravity describes attraction acting across empty space. Two masses feel each other instantly, no matter the distance. The formula predicts motion perfectly, but it hides a philosophical nightmare. How does an object reach across nothing and influence another object without delay, without contact, without any medium at all? Newton himself admitted this bothered him. He called it action at a distance and refused to explain the mechanism. He knew the theory was incomplete. History just chose to ignore that warning. Your brain inherited the simplified version. Gravity became a pull. Space became a passive stage. Time ticked the same everywhere. These ideas feel obvious because they match everyday experience. But physics doesn't care about what feels obvious. It cares about what stays consistent when pushed to extremes. The cracks appear when precision increases. Planets don't move exactly as they should. Light doesn't behave like ordinary objects. Clocks refuse to agree when motion or mass enters the picture. These aren't glitches. They are symptoms of a deeper misunderstanding. Newton's gravity works only because reality politely cooperates at low speeds and weak fields. But the universe does not promise to stay polite. Einstein realized something devastating. If gravity were truly a force, it should act the same in all situations. But it doesn't. In freefall, gravity vanishes locally. In accelerated motion, gravity appears out of nowhere. An elevator in deep space can create gravity without any mass nearby. That should be impossible for a force. Forces don't switch on just because you accelerate. This is where the old story collapses. Motion itself had been misidentified. What we called standing still was actually a state of constant acceleration through space. What we called falling was closer to the universe's default behavior. Gravity wasn't acting on objects were following paths, and something was interfering. Once you accept that, the idea of gravity as a pull becomes unnecessary, even misleading. And when a concept becomes unnecessary in physics, it doesn't slowly fade away. It gets replaced by something far more unsettling. Because if gravity isn't a force, then the thing shaping motion must be something deeper than interaction. Something geometric, something that doesn't push or pull, but silently tells matter how to move. At first, the problem looked insignificant, almost embarrassing. A minor mismatch between prediction and observation that most people were happy to ignore. Mercury's orbit didn't quite behave the way Newton said it should. The planet's closest point to the sun slowly drifted year after year, by an amount no equation could fully explain. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't catastrophic, but it was stubborn. Reality refused to line up perfectly with the story. For decades, physicists tried to patch the gap. Maybe there was another unseen planet. Maybe the measurements were off. Maybe the universe was just messy. But none of those excuses held up. The discrepancy stayed. Small, quiet, and relentless. That's often how fundamental errors announce themselves, not with explosions, but with whispers that won't go away. Einstein took that whisper seriously. And he noticed something else just as unsettling. Light itself was affected by gravity. If gravity were a force pulling on mass, light shouldn't care. Light has no mass. It shouldn't bend, slow, or deviate. And yet, observations showed that starlight curves as it passes near massive objects, not because it's being pulled, but because its path is being redirected. That changes everything, because now gravity isn't just influencing objects, it's shaping trajectories, even for things that have no weight, no rest mass, no way to feel a force in the usual sense. Light isn't being dragged, it's following something. Einstein realized the clue wasn't in the objects at all. It was in the background we thought was empty. Space itself could no longer be treated as a passive stage. Time could no longer tick independently. The universe wasn't a container where events happen. It was an active participant in every motion. Here's the unsettling part. Once you accept this, gravity stops being something added to motion. It becomes the explanation for motion. Objects aren't deviating because a force acts on them. They're moving exactly as they should along the straightest possible paths available to them. What we interpret as falling is simply following the shape of space, and that shape can be warped subtly, invisibly, by mass and energy. This means the apple doesn't fall because Earth pulls it. It falls because space-time near Earth is curved, and the apple is obeying that geometry perfectly. No tug, no reach. No invisible hand. Just structure. Once that clicks, the universe stops behaving like a machine full of forces and starts behaving like a landscape you're already inside, whether you realize it or not. Here is the inversion that quietly rewires everything you think you know. Falling is not a special motion. It is the most natural motion there is. Standing still is the anomaly. This feels wrong because your body has been trained to associate stability with rest. Feet on the ground, floor beneath you. New movement. But Einstein realized that this stillness is deceptive. When you are standing on Earth, you are not at rest. You are being forced off your natural path through space. In freefall, nothing pushes you. Nothing resists you. Your body, your atoms, even your internal clocks move in perfect agreement. That state feels weightless because it is not because gravity vanished, but because nothing is interfering. You are doing exactly what space-time allows you to do. Now look at what happens when you stand on the ground. The Earth blocks that natural motion. The floor pushes upward on your feet, your legs push back, and this constant resistance creates what you interpret as weight. Your muscles strain, your bones compress. That sensation is not gravity acting. Is your body being prevented from following the simplest path available to it. This is why acceleration and gravity become indistinguishable. Sit inside a rocket in deep space and accelerate upward. You feel gravity appear. Your body presses into the floor. Objects fall. Time behaves the same way it does near a planet. Not because gravity magically turned on, but because acceleration mimics the same geometric effect. This equivalence is devastating to intuition. It means gravity can be created without mass, and it means mass is not required to explain the feeling of weight. Forces can't do that. Geometry can. Once Einstein saw this, gravity no longer needed a mechanism. There was no invisible pull to explain. Motion itself had been misread. What we call inertial motion is just matter moving freely through curved space. What we call gravity is the interruption of that freedom. This flips the moral of the universe. The default state is not balanced motion, not falling toward something, but moving along paths shaped by the structure of reality itself. And the moment you accept that, gravity stops being something objects have and becomes something space-time is doing. But space-time doesn't just bend space. It does something far more disturbing, something you never feel directly, but which quietly decides how fast your life unfolds. This is where gravity stops being strange and becomes unsettling. Because once space-time replaces force, the most dramatic effect of gravity is no longer what it does to space, but what it does to time. Near massive objects, time does not flow at the same rate. This is not a metaphor, and it is not philosophical speculation. Clocks closer to Earth tick more slowly than clocks higher up. Satellites in orbit must correct for this difference constantly, or GPS would drift by kilometers every day. Gravity is literally stretching time. But here's the part your intuition rejects. Objects fall, not because space is pulling them down, but because time is flowing differently at different heights. Lower down, time runs. Slower, higher up, it runs faster. And matter always moves toward where its future exists more abundantly. That sentence should feel uncomfortable, but it's accurate. If you imagine time as a landscape rather than a stream, massive objects create slopes in time itself. Particles don't fall spatially, they slide toward regions where time advances less. Motion through space becomes a side effect of time trying to equalize. This explains something Newton never could: why gravity affects everything the same way. Mass, composition, structure, it doesn't matter, because gravity isn't interacting with matter directly. It's shaping the time all matter must pass through. Light follows this rule too. When light bends near a massive object, it's not being pulled like a projectile. It's following the fastest possible route through distorted time. Even massless things obey the geometry of space-time because they have no choice. Reality is the track. Everything else is just moving along. Once you see gravity this way, the universe feels less like a battlefield of forces and more like a frozen sculpture of relationships. Past, present, and future coexist in a structured whole. What changes is not what exists, but how you move through it. And this raises a question that's impossible to ignore. If gravity is geometry, and geometry dictates motion, then what you experience as now might not be universal at all. It might be local, personal, even because if time itself bends, then the idea of a single, shared present becomes impossible to defend. At this point, gravity has completely disappeared as a force. What remains is something far more intimate and far more disturbing. You are not moving through space and time, you are embedded inside their structure. We tend to imagine space as a vast container, an empty box where planets, stars, and bodies float around. But Einstein erased that picture. Space and time are not backgrounds. They are physical. They stretch, compress, ripple, and respond. And every step you take is a negotiation with their shape. When mass and energy exist, space-time curves. Not metaphorically, literally. Distances change. Durations change. Straight lines stop being straight. What you call an orbit is just an object tracing the most efficient path through a warped geometry. No force required. This is why gravity can create waves. When massive objects accelerate, black holes merging, neutron stars colliding, the geometry itself vibrates. Those vibrations travel outward at the speed of light, not through space, but as space. Gravitational waves are not something happening in the universe. They are the universe briefly shuddering. And here's the uncomfortable implication. If space-time is physical, then so are you. Your body is not a thing placed into reality. It is a pattern inside geometry. Your past, present, and future are not being created moment by moment. They are arranged, structured, already there in a four-dimensional whole. This is why Einstein struggled with randomness. In his view, reality does not roll dice. It unfolds according to geometry. What feels like choice, flow, and causation may simply be how a conscious mind experiences a fixed structure from the inside. You don't notice this because your perception slices reality into moments. It creates a moving now to stay functional. But physics doesn't recognize that slice. Space-time doesn't care about your present. It contains all events equally. Once you accept that, gravity stops being a mystery of attraction and becomes a message about existence itself. The universe is not happening to you. You are happening within it. And that leads to the most disturbing question of all: if your life is a path in space-time, are you moving through it or just becoming aware of it? By now, the idea should feel unavoidable. Gravity, as a force, does not exist. What exists is geometry, curved space-time, quietly organizing every motion, every orbit, every fall. And once you accept that, something deeper begins to unravel, because gravity was never the only thing you trusted without question. Think about how many concepts in your daily life depend on this same intuition. Up and down, stillness and motion, cause and effect. Even the idea that the present moment is something objectively real, shared by everyone at once, all of those feel obvious for the same reason gravity once did. Your brain evolved to survive, not to perceive reality accurately. Einstein's correction didn't just fix a physical theory, it exposed a pattern. When intuition and precision disagree, intuition loses every time. The universe does not arrange itself around human sensation. It arranges itself around structure, consistency, and geometry, whether that feels natural to you or not. If gravity can dissolve into curved spacetime, then force itself becomes suspect. If time slows and bends, then the idea of a universal now collapses. If motion depends on geometry, then free will, determinism, and choice become questions of perspective, not absolutes. The ground under your certainty keeps giving way, and yet nothing in your daily experience changes. You still feel weight. You still fall. You still age 1 second at a time. The illusion works perfectly. That's what makes it dangerous. Reality doesn't announce when your model is wrong, it lets you function inside it. Einstein showed us that understanding the universe requires betraying common sense. The deeper you go, the less your instincts can be trusted. Gravity was just the first lie to fall apart. So, the real question isn't whether gravity exists. It's this: how much of what you call reality is just a useful misunderstanding? And if geometry decides motion, time, and structure, where does that leave you, the observer, trying to make sense of it from the inside? That discomfort you feel right now is the point. Because once gravity disappears, certainty follows it. If you made it this far, you're already in the top fraction of people willing to let their intuition get dismantled. So do something small that proves you were really here. Comment gravity is a lie if this reframed everything you thought you knew. And if one line hits you hardest, falling is natural. Standing still is the illusion. Drop stillness is the trick. In the comments too, I read those, and it tells me exactly what concepts are landing. Now, subscribe if you want more videos that use Einstein to break the obvious parts of reality: time, light, space, the present moment, without drowning you in equations. Like the video as a signal to the algorithm that people actually want this kind of mind-bending science, because otherwise it gets buried under noise. And don't stop here, click the next video on your screen. It connects directly to what you just learned, and it takes the most disturbing consequence even further. If gravity can be replaced by geometry, then your idea of now might be the biggest illusion of all.